Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the XWF podcast with your host, Chronic Chris Page, them no good bastards, Thunder Knuckles, Bobby Bourbon, and yes, if available, Bearded War Pig. And the action starts now.
Hey everybody, it's Chris Page. Welcome to another episode of the XWF podcast. We've got a throwback episode, if you will, where we're going to go over the XWF Hart Championship. We've done a previous show with the television title, and we're going to circle back around and cover the championship that's very representative of Wednesday night on Warfare. I have assembled a all-star panel to sit back and kind of chit-chat and talk about this championship. The first I want to go ahead and bring in is obviously he's one of my tag team partners on the weekly shows, Mr. Bobby Bourbon. Bobby, how are you, brother?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Glad to be here. Glad to be chiming in about the Hart Championship and the history of it. Look forward to speaking with all the rest of the panel.
Well, I know that this championship is very near and dear to you personally. So when we got this one on the schedule, I was like, yes, because we've chatted off air about this several times. Also joining us today, we've got one of the, well, I guess technically this year was Hart Champion, Mr. R.L. Edgar / Dolly Waters as the RL character. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Bobby. Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be on here and talk about this championship.
It's going to be a good show for sure. The next individual I want to bring in, I think he can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's the second longest reigning Hart champion of all time. And if he's not, he should be. Centurion, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me. I don't know of all time. We'll get into some of the older reigns, but I know in terms of the modern era, I'm second only to, of course, the prestigious Robert Maine.
Well, speaking of the prestigious, he is also here today as well to round out our panel. Robert, you are the longest reigning Hart champion of the modern era. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive into this. I hold this near and dear to my heart.
It's people look at it as the championship of Wednesday nights. The Wednesday night warfare is pretty much built around it, but that's of this era. But Cent, I want to go to you first here because you and I are of the old heads in the game. You were here and have been here longer than just about anybody. What can you tell us going back to the heyday of the XWF that you're aware of?
So the Hart title initially was a stepping stone title. It was used for newer talent, maybe talent further down the card, to kind of get them over and use it to build them up to get towards the upper card. So a lot of the earlier champions, like you there are some folks in there that became legends. Dynamic Dynamite held the belt, and he had a great career. Raziel, and I hate to give him a shout out, but Zach Rizza held the belt, and it was a great champion at one point. But there are also some like guys that held the belt that you've never heard of before. But that's because at the time they might have had a good 1 or 2 month run. Like Pogo, for example, was the former Hart title. I went back and did some of these old shows to do some research before the Anarchy retro Anarchy shows, and there were some former Hart champions that I don't even remember that they were in the Fed for a long time. The other cool aspect of the Hart title back in the old days, though, was the prize for the Leap of Faith rafter match. So now when you win it, you get the 24/7 title. But back in the day, you were entered if you were one of these newer wrestlers, and that was the prize is the Hart title.
A Hart title shot, or
no, the Hart title itself was the what went to the winner of the match. So if you were the Hart champion entering Leap of Faith, you had to defend the belt in the Leap of Faith match.
Okay, I mean I can see that. That's an interesting fun fact. Who can you remember sent? And actually, let me backtrack. Did you ever pick up the championship back in the earlier years?
No, I was never. Because I came in and was immediately sort of the Canadian title guy. I never they never put me down with the Hart belt. Um, by the time that I got bad enough to where I would be competing with those folks, I thought I was too much of a veteran. So then I never was able to hold it. Then that's why it was cool to come back and fight for it 20 years later.
Legit 20 years too, man. Like that's the goddamn. If we weren't old before, that makes us sound old now.
Yeah.
So what's interesting with this entire panel, you know, I wanted everybody on the show for a specific reason. One of yours sent was because you've got that brain and can think back to yesteryears. There was a period of time where the title went kind of defunct, if you will, which is where RL would come into play, right? When did you come in to the Fed, and didn't you tell me that the Hart Championship was just being brought back around about that time?
Yeah, I believe so. I think it was either late 2014 or early 15 for me. But I remember Vinny Lane being that first when the championship was brought back, being that first Hart champion, and followed that run of his quite a bit because it all tied into what was a really cool kind of three-way race with he, Doc, and Gator, and even a four-way race with Morbid Angel for the Universal title. Um, but the Hart Championship, I guess, and I've never really realized it, but it was always kind of, I mean, that was the first championship match I was ever in. I think with Muddy Waters back in 2015 against Vinny, and I never really, it, it never dawned on me kind of how synonymous that championship has been with pretty much anything I've ever done here in a career at XWF, and so it's a really cool championship. It's got a lot of history, and I know the guys on this show have had a lot to do with that history. So I'm excited to hear, like what Bobby thinks and what Robert thinks as well.
It's funny because we're coming over around to Bobby next. Let's talk about what your view of the Hart Championship is.
When I first came around, the Hart Championship, it's like what Centurion said. It's a kind of a developmental championship. It's where you go when you need to step your game up and kind of, get your licks in and get the time in and get used to being a champion. And to just kind of gain some momentum, gain a feel for what, not just how you play the game, but how your character plays the game and who your character is and how you can hold a championship. Um, and that carries over to today. Now it has fluctuated up and down since I've been here. Like the importance and the gravitas associated with the Hart Championship. Right now, I think it's in a good place. It's heatedly contested. It's something people chase after now, but for a time it wasn't. Like Sent pointed out, it was just there were too many championships. I feel in the Fed at one point, and some title holders, were better than others. Sometimes some people use it to leapfrog. I think RL even touched on how Vinny had it, and Vinny transitioned from being hard champion to uni. Um, but there was also another, mid card championship at the time. We never had the Canadian championship as long as I've been here, but there was an intercontinental championship, and that title, that title got unified with the Extreme Championship. Um, but right now, and as it stands, I think that the Hard Championship it's a good prize to go for. It has some prestige. It's something that you can it's something you can be proud of.
Well, on our journey, and we can kind of navigate these waters together as we go here. Uh, Robert, man, let me come over to you because I'm only familiar with the product from 2019 forward. When I came in, you were the Universal Champion, but before that Universal Championship, you had the longest reign of the modern era with the Hart Championship. So chat me up and let's talk about where or what made you opt in to try and take this championship?
So when I first came in, about the end of 2015, 2016, I was new, and the first thing I did, I went through the championships, and of course the Universal was, I knew that was out of reach. So the Extreme, I looked at the rules, and it's, the 24/7 pin thing. I didn't want that, and I didn't know what my character was going to be or where it was going to go. So I looked at the middle and at the heart, and I said, well, maybe I can build with this championship if I can get there. Long story short, I finally got my match. I was champion, I think, for about 2 or 3 months, and I lost. I came back. I got it back, and then that's when my storytelling and my writing really started to take off, and I started building this universe around Robert. That's when Jim kind of came into the fold. Drew came into the fold, and we kind of built Apex, and everything kind of transitioned from there going forward. I would be where I was today without having that Hart Championship run and building my character while holding that championship.
Who did you take the title from?
I believe the first time I took it from Robbie Bourbon, I believe. I'm not sure. Robbie will have to answer that, but I'm not sure.
Do you recall that, Bobby?
I am very fuzzy on my initial Hart Championship run. I remember I beat Peter Gilmore for it, and then I beat a handful of people. But towards the end of the reign, I was having issues outside of the Fed, and I was kind of stepping away from the moment. So I'll defer. If Maine remembers that, then that's it.
Gotcha. When you first took the Hart Championship, was you expecting a massive run like you had with it, or what was your goal with the title?
So my goal going in, and you can go back and read the role plays. My goal, and I would say it time and time again, my entire goal is to be the longest reigning Hart Champion. That was it. That's all I wanted to do. I never really wanted the Universal title. I never really thought about the Universal title. To me, it was taking the Hart Championship and making it a mainline championship right below the Universal title. And finally going down this run, after several times, it all kind of panned out that way, where the Hart Championship was one of the main titles. I always had somebody coming after me. Somebody always wanted to,
The guy. The guy that ends the run.
exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, when you were running with the championship, how long was that initial run? Or not the initial, the longest reigning run. So I have perspective.
I believe it's 9 months, 280 days, or something like that. Something along those lines.
So, Robert, when you had the championship, what was the sharks in the pond, or the sharks in the ocean, if you will, the talent level that was trying to come after you?
The person I remember the most, and I don't ever know what happened to him, was Danny Imperial. This cat was always on my heels. He was always coming after me. And we had several matches where we would go back and forth, back and forth. In the end, he never obviously got that opportunity to take me down. And I wish he would come back today, because I loved his work and I love facing him. He is what made me who I am today. If there's ever a shout out, Danny Imperial, he deserves that.
Who was the person who finally took you down?
Mandy Ryder finally defeated me.
Okay, I got you. When you came in, obviously we think that you knocked off Bourbon to win the championship. What I'll get to that. Well, I guess we'll circle around to Bourbon here in just a second. While you were running with the championship, obviously it's a record that's chased today. The only person to come close to it is Sent, and what's your head at? Where's your head at with how that record has kind of, I guess, maintained its spot?
I always watch the Hart Championship. I always like to see, because generally when people come in, it's either the television title or it's the Hart, and I like to see what they do with the title and how they develop their character around the title. As far as the record goes, I mean, records are meant to be broken. I was watching Sent. I actually wanted Sent to do it, but if somebody gets it, I'll be the first to shout out. I'll say, great job.
Centurion, you came back. I want to say, or not too long before I did in 2019, and within literally a matter of months, you pick up the Hart Championship. What was the division like then? Again, I think I came in April, May-ish. You had just come back right before that.
Yeah. So when I came back, the champion at the time was actually Dolly Waters. Dolly dropped the belt to Tony Santos, and Santos had it up until I took it from him. So it was kind of, it wasn't as, I want to say, open, because the competition at the top was so good that it took a lot to try to take down, especially Santos. Like, Santos was so strong as a champion. So that's kind of where we were at the time, and I think the competition was more at that time around the TV title, because people didn't want to do the 3 role plays, at least as far as what my memory banks at the time goes. This was before Ned came in, and before like right before Thad really started picking up, and Corey and all those guys were really starting to move forward and become what the Hart title is now. At the time, it was all the competition was over the TV belt, and then Tony kind of had the Hart title on lock.
You knock off Tony Santos, and you went on this. It's an incredible run. I think you were within 30 days, maybe, of snatching Rob's record. I remember bits and pieces of that. My memory is a little fuzzy because I was too busy getting my ass handed to me by Maine. But chat me up on your run with it, and who were your favorite opponents that you lined up with? I do remember that you were defending it regularly.
Yeah, it was, every show. So I had Robbie was in there at one point. TK was in there at one point. Vita Valentine, I defended at a pay-per-view. I defended against Chris the Hammer Von Bon. I believe I faced him twice, actually, now that I think about it. I faced Tristan Slater, which was still one of my favorite matches. Just the build up to that was awesome. I can't.
I forgot. We did do that.
Yeah, and what I loved about that one was sort of because Slater was the guy when the rebirth sort of happened in 2012, and so the whole story kind of behind that was, you were the guy of then. I was the Hart champion, but I also have this sort of long history. And then the match, and you wrote the match. I don't know if you remember writing the match, but it was like it was like Yuji Nagata and Minoru Suzuki, just two guys just beat the utterly hell out of each other. It was awesome.
Who ended up taking the belt off of you?
So it was the hired gun that took the belt off of me.
After an incredible run, and then he didn't have it too long, and it went to Nathaniel, and then it came over to you, Bobby. So chat me up on your run with it, and then RL, I'm going to come to you, and then we're going to have a big discussion about the Hart title because I want everybody's views and opinions. But go ahead, Bobby. Let's talk about you pick it up. Actually, you have to backtrack because there was that situation where the belt was taken and defended in another Fed, and we created the MVP of Warfare, which you won. So chat me up on that.
Well, I remember I was coming back into the Fed because I had to take a little time off, as some folks do. And I came back in and I was like, yeah, book me for Warfare. And like the next booking, I say, oh, it's going to be this big battle royale for the Warfare MVP. And I'm like, oh, that sounds neat. Yeah, we'll do that. And, I was booked into it. So I RP'd for it. And I wound up winning the battle royale, becoming the Warfare MVP. And then the next week, I wound up beating Thad twice and something like that. I wound up beating Thad 3 times in like 2 weeks. And became the Warfare MVP. So I had to fight every Warfare. I'm like, cool, I'll do this. In the meantime, I'm wondering, well, where's the Hart Championship? We're doing the MVP thing as a surrogate Hart Championship. So I'm reading up on the Hart Championship story, and Idenhouse dropped it to somebody from another Fed. So I started just cutting promos on the shows, like calling out this other Fed and these other guys to see if we get any kind of response, anything like that. And there was nothing, bupkis. Well, eventually that fizzled out, their little story, and Idenhouse got his title back. And I was immediately booked Bourbon versus Idenhouse. And, I role played for the match. I don't know who handles something like that, but historically, the Idenhouse character was very taboo. It was from the darker era of XWF. We were a Nazi. So, I role played that and role played my heart out about that. And I won the match. And it was written. I didn't write the match. I don't know who wrote the match, but it was written like a total squash, where Bourbon just crushed Idenhouse, took the championship, and ran with it. And at that point, after Sent's long and very impressive run, and after Maine's impressive run, there's a little bit of tarnish on the Hart Championship because it did go over to this other Fed. It was treated like the thing you loan out. It was just like it was the white elephant Christmas present. Like, just pass it around. You don't want it anymore. So what I did is, okay, I'll defend it every week, just like it's the Warfare MVP, and I did. And I went up against some good names, good talent, like the Wizard. I thought that was going to be a really tough one for me. I did not know or expect to come out of that a victor, because the Wizard was writing really good stuff. And out of character, I'm a big fan of their work, and some of their other characters they write all around E-Fetting universe. Mad props to them. I love them to death. I look forward to working with them again. And I held on to the championship and just defended it diligently up until High Stakes. And around High Stakes, I was in the full swing of things as a member of Bob. And me and TK got a plan that we were going to go check out, maybe this Fed, that Fed, all around the universe, and see what we could do and accomplish, see if we could maybe spread the word of Bob, trickle it around, do what we could do. And what happens is, it's like me and TK go to this other Fed and we check it out, and I write one role play for them for this big event that they're having. But meanwhile, I'm still the Hart champion. So at High Stakes, I think I wrote a couple of RPs, maybe 1 or 2 for the big battle royale. And I specifically talked to, the people, to the GMs, like, I want to defend against Ned K. And the reason for that is because earlier in the year, I had a storyline going on with Engineer over the Universal Championship. It was kind of consecutive with some of the matches I was having with Centurion. One of the matches I had with Cent was in a glass cage, and Engineer actually came in and cost Bourbon the Hart Championship in that match. And then right after, Ned stepped forward and said he was going to take his challenge for the Universal Championship. So I was like, cool. I stepped back and let him take it. And then in high stakes, I was like, all right, we'll do me and Ned. And I kind of had an idea that this would be, I hate to say a good time to pass the torch because you do want to compete as hard as you can. But I was kind of fading out of the XWF. At least I thought I was for the time being. And I put forth an effort, but Ned beat me clean, and I can't complain about that. And Ned ran with it for a while, and that was pretty cool, you know. And I don't want to say I was a transitional champion, but I feel that the biggest thing that I contributed was building back the championship up after it had been tarnished by being hot potatoed over another company and a storyline that absolutely died because it was being held by folks that didn't really see it as a thing. When it goes to another Fed, they don't see it as a thing. They see it as maybe some cross promotion, whatever. But that didn't happen. I like to think that I brought it back to some prominence, that people were going to chase after it again. Like it was something people wanted to get their hands on, and that happened. Like when Ned got it, he ran with it, and he had a pretty good little run with it. And he's been feuding with RL, with Thad, and just keeping the Hart Championship scene hot since. So hopefully, I had a little bit of contribution by building the stove.
I think everybody who's hung on to that championship has got a part to play in it. RL, let's come over to you. Kind of as we're chronologically going through all this stuff, you got a little bit more of a story to tell because you're talking about two different handlers here, or possibly three. So chat me up on the Hart title. Obviously, you had it with Dolly, so let's go back there and let's start with that and work our way forward.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess funny enough, like I said, my first ever championship match in the Fed was for the Hart title against Lane, and that guy was just, if you were around back for when Vinny was actually role playing and not just running the Fed, and I mean he was really a treat, and it was something that you kind of aspired to. At least I did anyway. And so since from that time, I always really had my eye on the Hart Championship. I wanted to have an opportunity to fight for it again. And oddly enough, when I won it the first time, this was back in 2016. It was in October of 16, and I was actually the television champion at the time that I won the Hart title. So the match was on Savage, um, and back then that's when the Hart or the television title was an every week thing. So I had defended it on 4 or 5 shows in a row, and then I get booked in a match against the Hart champion at the time, who was Michael McBride, and another character, Jacob Davis, who I think is Finn, if I remember correctly. Um, but basically, whoever took the first fall would win the TV title, and the second fall would win the Hart championship. And so that was my first little run with it, which I tried to. During that, there was I wouldn't say that the talent was like thin, but it was definitely top heavy. So there were not a lot of people to kind of fill up mid card roles as far as having a lot of people to challenge for the Hart or the TV. You kind of had your big dogs. You had Doc and um, Vinny and some others at the top, and then not a whole lot there at the in the middle. Um, but it ended up kind of molding into this storyline where we vacate the title from Dolly, and then she goes into, she's imprisoned, kind of just a goofy story, and then comes back and does the lethal lottery thing. But um, and just to kind of skip ahead to talk about what Bobby was talking about, I think he absolutely did, because when I came back recently, I was going back and looking at the Hart title again, um, and kind of seeing that weird spot where the championship was defended in another Fed. I thought, wow, this is kind of um, the Hart title's kind of taking a dive here, but it seems like from the time that Bobby got it back and it got to Ned's hands, and then the kind of the really good matches that's been for the Hart Championship since then, RL and Ned, RL and Lycana, um, Thad and Ned. I mean, I think it's probably hotter than it's maybe ever been. And we have the talent to kind of to prop it up and keep it that way. Enough people actually riding and role playing kind of at that mid card level. So it's cool to see. When I came in, there was a time, and then talking about Robert Main's run. So there was a brief period where I came back and role played as Muddy during Robert's. I think it was your first run, or it might have been your second one. But you saw right then. I went against him. He was just absolutely on fire. It's a wonder that he ever lost that championship. Just the way the rate he was going and the work he was putting out. Um, and that was a really cool run to watch. Um, and then so I guess then the second time I won it would have been in 2019, and I think I took it from Zane Norrison, who I think is a lot of different characters. Um, and had some really fun matches with Hanari, Carnes. I never know if I say that name right. Um, there were some matches with Vita and Game Girl. I mean, that was a really fun run with it as well. So yeah, I mean it's been every time. It seems that I come into the XWF, I somehow get involved with that championship, and so it's definitely near and dear to my heart, and I'm really excited to see where it is now. Um, just knowing the people who are involved and telling stories with it, because they're really second to none when it comes to that. So
It sounds like this championship is kind of the stepping stone to either bigger and better things, or it's always one of those. I guess same could be said with any championship. Really, truly, your run's what you make of it, right? So I want to open this up and to you guys. Y'all had the championship. You guys were here. Let's talk about the division itself based off of what we've already heard. Seth, I'll start with you, and then you guys just kind of talk amongst yourselves, and let's see what happens here.
So what I enjoy about the belt, at least in modern times, was that it was basically the big belt on warfare. I love the way that you got the two sort of brand belts, the Hart title and the TV title, that make up your flagship shows. With the Extreme and the Universal title, especially if Paige, you kind of screwed things up a little bit as Union champ, because you defended that belt all the time. So the main event spot was always taken. But technically, most warfares, the Hart title is supposed to be, sort of the main event of the show. We've got Thag Duke as the champ now. He's I mean he's phenomenal talent, as we know, and he's held pretty much every not pretty much he has held every title in the Fed. But there is a large group of talent in that sort of middle rung that can easily step up for these belts. And I don't think we're going to see this sort of long term, someone holds the belt for 9 months for a little while, because I just think that there's too much depth at that level, that I could easily see someone jumping up and taking it, because it's gotten so good.
Robert.
Yeah, I agree with what Sent said. The depth in the division now is better than it's ever been. You got Thad in there, you got Ned, you got several others that can step up and just make magic with one another. Now, as far as a long run, I mean, anything's possible. As long as you decide to put in the work and tell a great story, you can have a great long run. But like Sent said, there is so much talent that is going to be really, really difficult to do.
yeah, I think sometimes when you look at stuff just from a wrestling perspective, you'd hate kind of the idea of a title getting hot potatoed around a whole lot, but with what it's been since, I think, that end of Even if you just cut out a few months from Centurion's run to when Bobby got it back and what it's been since and all the talent we have, it's not, it's kind of an inevitability because there's so many people that are that good, and it's not really in a way that it'd be a detriment to it. It's strengthening it, and I mean, who knows how many future Universal Champions now have held it just as a result of this year alone. So I think it's a good thing for it, and we definitely got the horses that can make some cool stories and some cool title changes and stuff happen.
Bobby.
I have to echo the sentiment of what everybody else has been saying right now. I think that the Hart Championship scene it's as good as it's ever been, if not better. The names and the talent involved in there. I'm interested to see what happens with the championship and what kind of stories unfold with it.
Let's take a minute and everybody just kind of reflect back. I know that there's probably going to be several answers that are going to be the same here because it's the division is what it is, and there's only been so many champions within the division itself. But if you could picture, or not picture, but if you could think back, and we always do this on the podcast with like the Mount Rushmore, right, of who you think your top role players are. Let's do something kind of similar, and let's kind of do like a mini Mount Rushmore of the Hart Champions that have been in the mix that you yourselves are personally aware of. Centurion, I'm gonna come over to you first for that.
Okay. Dynamic Dynamite. Hawaiian Hardhead, who embraced that title. I mean, he loved being champion and held it for quite a while. And he really loved being that champion. So I got to put him in there. For as much of a prick as he could be, I'll put Raziel up there because it really was the stepping stone for him that then made him become a really good champion. And then I'm going to put Robert Maine, just for his run, the fact that he had that legendary title, had legendary title run, which he basically transitioned that into a uni title run, which was essentially the original idea of the belt to begin with. Maine did it. It just he did it without knowing that was what the whole point.
RL, let's go to you next.
Well, definitely for me, I mean, it would start out with that first kind of awestruck I had with it. So Vinnie Lane would definitely go on the Mount Rushmore of Hart Champions from the time that I've been around. Just he had a great run, and the belt was really I don't know. It's kind of just it fit that character. It was kind of the perfect belt for Vinnie Lane. Then obviously, I would have Robbie Bourbon on there as well. Um, that's another belt that's kind of just I mean that's a character that the belt's synonymous with. You think Hart Championship if you're from my era, you think of Robbie Bourbon, and then of course you think of Robert Maine. Um, that's another great one. And then next, I guess I would have to put Centurion's run on there because that was there's a lot of longevity to that, and he was defending it, quite frequently. I sad that I didn't get to see a lot of that, but I was aware of the run that he had. Um, and then to Ned K, because I think that the stories that Ned has told with those with the championship has kind of fixated the belt on the future and what's coming down the pike for it, and it's kind of almost like the new beginning of the Hart Championship is kind of from that era that began with Ned and Bobby's transition, or sort of that passing of the torch to a new era. So that would be my Mount Rushmore.
Birds.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to say Vinnie Lane and echo that sentiment. He was the guy who was holding it when I came in and basically making moves with it. and he transitioned that into a uni title run. Next is going to be Maine, who did a lot of the same, and he's back since he's held it. Then Centurion, just who had a phenomenal run with it. And my fourth name, this is going to be a little controversial, but the guy held it like a billion times. I'm going to have to say Gilmore.
Womp, womp, womp. I'm just playing, brother.
Yeah, from a
Robert, man.
character
Good.
standpoint, Gilmore.
I mean, I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to fault it. I mean, how many title runs did that cat have?
He had like 17, something like that. Like they were all, most of them were short runs, but he kept winning it and winning it and winning it. Like
The one thing Gilmore could do good is win a Hart Championship.
well, he didn't do it good. He just did it a lot.
I think he won the Hart Championship one time. That I think he won the Extreme Championship like 17 times.
Ah, well,
But still, I could sentiment that. I could follow that.
I think Gilmore had a run in the early days as well. I mean, again, not a long run, but he was because he was around all the time. He just kept getting title shots, and he would convert them at a clip of about 40%. But if you have 400 title shots, you get 40% of those wins. You're going to get a lot of titles.
I wouldn't even give him 40%. But yeah, he did have a bajillion shots at it, and he got quite a few runs out of it.
Robert, hit me up on your Mount Rushmore with the Hart Championship.
So my Mount Rushmore, I'm gonna throw Tony Santos in there. I think everything he did was phenomenal. It was great work. All of his role plays were awesome. I'm gonna throw it out to Vinny Lane because, kind of like Sent said, he transitioned into a universal title run, and I did the same thing, and I didn't know I was doing it. I'm gonna throw. Let's see. I'm gonna throw Robbie Bourbon in there. I think he's another one that's synonymous with the Hart Championship, and I think the other one I'm gonna throw in there is Maverick. He's top 3.
Old Mav, man, that's a interesting perspective and an interesting take on it. Let me ask you guys this. I mean, we know we've talked a little bit, and it's kind of been on and off. Then versus now, I think we've got a really hot product right now. That's not just revolving around the Hart Championship, but with all the championships. Then versus now, how, from your perspective, Bobby Bourbon, I'm gonna come to you first on this one. From your perspective, from when you first came into where we are now, I mean, let's talk to me about what you've seen within the blow up within the division itself.
From when I first came in, it was Vinny Lane holding it, and basically, anytime I've held that championship, I've tried to follow the example that he set of just being a fighting champion, somebody who will defend it, somebody who will represent the championship. There have been a lot of strange ups and downs within the Fed since I've been here, as RL can attest. There's been times where the boards were down for several months. There's been times where I've been gone. But the Hart Championship has endured, and it will continue to endure. Now, that's not to say a year from now, it's going to be a brand new bunch of faces that are all going for the Hart Championship, which is great. But I think that the table's been set for that championship. And I appreciate the compliments from everybody in the room so far, myself being synonymous and whatnot. But really, I think everybody else in the room did a great job of setting the table too, more so than myself, and in contributing to the lineage of that championship and making it mean something within the Fed. Now, I think that's something that we can do to expand on it. They tried to do last year, which was try to make it a little cross promotional. I think that whoever has the Hart Championship, go on Twitter, tout about that shit. Go around and just boast about being the Hart champion on Twitter, and then Let some fool say, "Oh, that's a secondary championship." Well, come on down. Try to take it from me. That kind of thing. Because there's some toxic assholes on Twitter. We all know that. They're gonna stay that way no matter what you say. But get the word out there. Get the name out there. Like, look at what Atara is doing right now. Atara Themis, as Addy Two Belts, and how she goes onto social media and just brags about the championship she's holding. Look at me and TK. We go on there and we talk about being the tag champions. I think that kind of promotion for the Hart Championship, that's going to be the next evolutionary leap. And to see somebody take it and run with it and do that kind of stuff with it, I'm excited for it. I think that Thad is actually starting to do that, but I'd like to see it develop a little bit more.
I dig that perspective, Bobby. I see exactly where you're coming from on that, and I love that thought process. Centurion, let's go to you next.
Well, what was the original question here?
Then versus now, like the progression of the division itself. I mean, you were around way back when, all the way through the present, and I mean, to me, I'm really interested in your take just because of how far back you can go. And we both know that in 2008, 2009, you had 50 or 60 people on the role play boards. It was not uncustomary for here. So the level of talent then versus the level of talent now, and just overall where the division's at.
Yeah, it's night and day. I mean, back in the day, the Hart title, like I said, was a stepping stone belt. There were some pay-per-views that the Hart belt wasn't even like defended. They would have it like on a go home show. They would defend it because they couldn't fit in the Hart belt at a pay-per-view. I mean, that wasn't common, but if anything was going to get cut, that was going to be the title that got cut. And like I also said, there were some names that like Thad Duke would never have won the Hart belt back in the day because you just wouldn't have thought of it, like he wouldn't have stepped down to that level. The fact that the Hart title is a main event belt now that former Universal Champions are fighting for, like, says a lot about the progression of the belt. And I also think it's a great thing in the sense that because the belt has so much history, you can point to it having this lineage and say, it's grown to this point. It's not a new belt that we plucked out of nowhere and say, oh, this is now going to be a prestigious belt. It earned its prestige because of its longevity.
Yeah, that's that's an interesting point too. I mean, it has been around for almost 20 fucking years, minus a little bit here and a little bit there. Edgar, RL, let me shoot over to you. Question.
I think we kind of touched on it, earlier. Just so when it was, I remember a specific time where we started really trying to push emphasis on the brand. So you had the Warfare brand and the Savage brand, the TV title, and the Hart Championship became a kind of a, um, the predominant. These are your stepping stones to the Universal title. You can go this route or that route, um, and there weren't a lot of people really in that mid undercard, um, those divisions at the time. People kind of sporadically be in and out of the Fed. Now you can kind of start to see what's coming down the pike with just all the characters and all the talent that we have now. Um, I think we're entering probably what will be a new, I hate to call it something like a golden age, something cliche like that, but that's what it seems like we might be stepping into with the Hart Championship now, and I'm excited to see it because it is a title that's very special to me, and of course, it sent. Maybe you can go back and do some history on what was the original namesake. I'm sure it was did it have to do with Owen? Was that the reason?
Yeah, it was. In fact, I'm pretty sure. I don't even think John came up with it. I think George, the original owner of the XWF, created it. So I mean, you're talking now 22 years of history with the belt, and it was in honor of Owen Hart.
That's great, and like Brett and Owen were always two of my favorite wrestlers, and so it's just a cool championship, and I'm glad we have it. It's you tell by the people who are in here talking about it so glowingly what a great belt it is, and what a even better belt it's going to become. I feel so. I'm just excited to and kind of honored to be here to talk about it.
Robert.
The difference between then and now is, back when I came in, the champions they were defending the belt. They were defending it pretty well, but it seemed like it was almost like a hot potato moment. It would move from champion to champion, and something I would like to see going in the future, there should be some perks with being Hart Champion. You should get, after so many defenses, maybe you should get a shot at the Extreme title, or maybe you should get a shot at the Universal title. That way it'll keep the division fresh and it would keep it interesting, because a lot of the other divisions have some perks to them. And I think where the division's going now, it's super strong. You got talent everywhere. And I actually have a question for the rest of you. Who do you believe on the roster would make an amazing Hart champion? Me personally, I think Jim Cadis would be a hell of a Hart champion.
I'm to piggyback off of what you said. It used to be hot potatoed around. I think your reign and Centurion's reign kind of solidified it as its own thing. As for it bleeding into new championship opportunities, it kind of reminds me of how the U.S. title used to work in old WCW, where the U.S. champion was by default the number one contender. They just very rarely ran with that. So having the Hart champion be like a de facto contender at times, I could see that as being something maybe that the GMs could consider. But to answer the question you just posed, who do I think would be a phenomenal Hart champion that's on the roster right now? I think this might sound ridiculous. I think Betsy should get a Hart championship shot. I think Atara. I think that there's a lot of names out there, but those are the ones that are screaming to me right now. Is a lot of the people that have been going after the shooting star transition them over into a quote unquote co-ed belt and put them in the Hart title scene and see what happens.
I agree with that 100%. I agree with all those names.
Yeah, I like those names too, and I like Jim Cadis. The idea of Jim Cadis getting a hold of that Hart title and getting a good run with it, because he had the run with the TV title for a long time that was really good, and I know he would do good stuff with the Hart Championship. But right now, I think we've got a Hart champion. I know he's just getting started with his run. You talk about a guy who just packs in segments after segments on shows, and it's kind of always constantly, step or two ahead where he needs to be with his writing. I think Thad Duke will do some really good stuff with the Hart Championship right now.
Centurion.
I mean, I could probably give you like an entire laundry list of names. Marv. I would say Lycana, but she's already Extreme Champion, so it's not like she needs to go after the Hart belt to solidify herself. Betsy Addy, like you said, Chaos. If he doesn't win the uni belt, I could easily see him transitioning into a Hart title program. If they want to leave Anarchy and challenge for him, I could easily see Miss Fury and Ruby, both fighting for that belt. That's if they wanted to up their game from 1 RP 1,000 words to 3 RP unlimited words. I know that's quite the jump, but I could see either of them really rocking it in that division. I mean there's a whole host of names that you could run through that you could say would easily make for good contenders.
Why do you gotta tease me with name dropping Ruby?
I'm not teasing you. I'm trying to get it into her head that hey, maybe do this. Maybe you should do this because a lot of us want to see you try.
I do, and I think that was the name that first popped into my mind was Ruby, because I think there's a lot that character can do if she chooses to do. And I also think Atara. I think Betsy. I like that. I like the idea of Jim Cadis. I do think that is going to be a tremendous champion. But here's a name to throw out there. And, as of this recording, he is probably lining up to take the TV title. I think Corey Smith would be a pretty good Hart champion as well.
I'd agree with that. And he would love to see his name highlighted in pink too on the boards. That would tickle him, I'm sure.
Here's a question for you guys, and we can do a panel discussion on this. Of all the Hart champions that you guys are aware of and have knowledge of, who do you think did the most with the belt? I mean, obviously, I don't. Outside of yourselves, let's think of other people. We know that Rob had the longest reign as Hart champion, so obviously that's going to be in the mix and on the radar. But outside of yourselves, who do you think did the most with the championship while they've had it? And Tyrion, this would be a good starting point for you.
Yeah, so two of the guys that I mentioned that on my Mount Rushmore that I, for different reasons, Dynamic Dynamite basically was I can only go back to 2001. I know that there were some people that were like in 99 and 2000 that held it that went on to become great, but Dynamic Dynamite was the first person I remember that won the belt, had a long title with it, and transitioned immediately into the Universal title. He kind of set that standard. And then Hawaiian Hardhead, like I said, embraced that title. He just loved being the Hart champion, and he was never like he knew that he was never going to be Universal champion. So his end game was always to just hold that belt and bring prestige to it, and he did a phenomenal job with that. It was almost as if he just enjoyed his moment to be champion, and that I think that brought a lot of people into it. A lot of people wanted to work with him at that time because of that. So I put him in that list as well.
Urban, man, let me talk to you about that. Same question for you.
If we're going to talk about people not in the current cast, not on the panel right now. As for who did a lot with it and did more for it, if memory serves me right, I don't know. My memory's kind of fuzzy. I think Vinny Lane did a lot with it because again, when I came in, he was doing a lot with it and setting the table and doing that transition into the Universal Championship. In terms of people that are in the panel right now, Centurion and Robert Maine, they propelled it from being just a stepping stone to being, an actual championship and a prize. So kudos to both of those guys. RL, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as far as people not on the panel right now, we talked kind of a bit about some of the time where it was kind of dark times and the Fed kind of here and not. That's I think those. Oh, I didn't know if y'all could hear me. I had my mic up the whole time. Sorry. But if we're talking about people just not on the panel right now, you were mentioning kind of some of the dark times of the Fed when it was kind of here and not. There was, I think that was around the time that Catering and Danny were kind of going back and forth with the belt, and Gilly was in there too, and that those guys kind of stepped up and did what they need to do to kind of keep the championship relevant during that time. And then I'll just kind of take the other person on the panel that you didn't mention, Bobby, was yourself. As far as kind of the story you told to kind of bring the belt back during, you kind of made it your mission, and again, it was just you were also a character that kind of followed in Vinny's footsteps and turned or kind of showed that you can use the Hart Championship to propel to that Universal title run. And so I think that did a lot for the belt back during those earlier times that I was around, because it really lifted the belt's stature up in that regard.
Robert, man, what's your take on all that?
Everybody's got great names. But I'm going to look at some of the role plays and some of the work that people actually put out and made themselves a monster. And I think that was Tony Santos. I think during his run, he he reinvented himself. He created something that he wasn't. He became a monster. And I don't know where he is now or what he's doing, but if you're listening to this, brother, you need to come back. And the other one, yeah, you guys mentioned was Vinny Lane. Vinny Lane took the title and he ran with it. He had great role plays. You go back and read them if you can find them. Do that. But he transitioned. He transitioned it into a Universal Championship run, and I think Vinny's in the top 5 in the uni too. So anybody out there that looks at the Hart Championship as just another championship, it's not. A lot of people that's held it has become Universal Champions, and a lot of those people are in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Robert, as someone who's seen a lot and done a lot with the championship, someone that maybe just wasn't there at that time. But let's me restructure the question. Maybe somebody that wasn't the champion or has been the champion, excuse me, but wasn't at their full potential. But if could come back now and maybe do something with it, who would it be?
So somebody I think that could have done more and built more around their character is Chris Chaos. When I came into the Fed, he just went up in an elimination style match, and I think it was elimination chamber, and won the Universal Championship. When he got the Hart Championship, I think he had the Hart title for 2 weeks before dropping it. I think Chaos could have rebranded his character. He could have rebuilt everything through a dominant Hart title run and actually showed the world, hey, I didn't catch lightning in the bottle one time as a Universal Champion. And he could have proven that through another Hart run. So that's one name that I wish that could have done more with it, because I think it would have done leaps and bounds for his character. And as far as somebody, else, it probably Gilmore. It to me personally, it isn't the number of titles you have, it's how long your run is and what you've done.
Ariel, let me circle back around to you with that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree about Chris Chaos too. But Cadron Tiberius, I know I mentioned him, I brought him up earlier, and same as with Danny Imperial as well. Those are two guys who you wished had got to stay around back then because they were starting to really pick up steam and they were doing it with the Hart Championship. And I think those are both two guys who could have parlayed easily into kind of being top guys beyond the Hart Championship by going after Universal Championships and really using the Hart title to get there. I would have liked to have seen what happened to those guys had they been able to stay around for a couple of consecutive years. There's no telling what the that top 50 would look like today had both those guys gotten to do that.
Herbs.
I'm going to take it way back. I'm going to say Maverick, not Centurion's Maverick, but the second Maverick. He took the title off of Vinny Lane, and then it just kind of the wheels fell off. I think he could have done a lot more with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna restructure it in sort of a way of people that won the belt that were really good, but just that was kind of their crowning achievement. I mean, and there's going to be some names on this list that you probably never heard of before, but at the time they had a lot of great potential. Iron Bull is a name that you probably haven't heard. Royal Ambassador, he won it and had a great character, but it just sort of, once he won the belt, he kind of just sort of fizzled out. Patience Price was around for like a few years, was always sort of in that mid tier level. When she won the Hart belt, it kind of looked like she was going to step up, and then I'm not 100% sure what happened after that. Kevin Jewett was around for a very long time. Actually, he was my roommate in college. He was around for quite a while, and from what I know, he actually went to other feds and have since gone on to have great careers there. It's just that his career at XWF sort of never got beyond that point. Um, I'm trying to think some other ones. There was a man by the name of Gecko, who had this really neat character. But he got burnt out after he won the belt. He admitted he got burnt out. Um, a prototype is another name, guy that was there. Oh, here's actually a great one. He was a man by the name of Maximus. He was sort of set up to be the next guy in line because he had a period of time there when he was very very good. I actually think he fought like Dynamite, and I think he might have fought Lee Stone and some of these other folks that were around at that time that became like this really big name. He won the Hart belt, and we all kind of just assumed that he was going to go on, from there. But I think after a couple of shots at the big one, he kind of got discouraged from the game. But there were some, I would put him as sort of the number one example of someone that won the belt, had all the potential in the world, but just wasn't able to cash it in.
It's the Hart Championship division's kind of one that it stands in its own. It's got a life. It does have this history, and just sitting around talking about it with you guys has been it's been great. So let's bottom line it with your final thoughts. Round table style. Centurion, give me your final take on the division, and where do you see it going from here? Because it looks like the sky's the limit.
It is, especially you look at the last few champions. You have Thad Duke, former Universal Champion, and then you have Ned K, who I think could easily be a contender for the Uni belt. When you have guys like that, writers like that are fighting for the belt, all that's going to do is just strengthen it, and it's kind of incidentally makes it that stepping stone title again, although in a much different way. Instead of being like, oh, you're new to the Fed, here's this belt you can fight for, and if you do well, you can step your game up. It's, oh, if you can prove yourself to be a good Hart champion, then you can easily transfer into becoming a universal title contender. So that's sort of a great way of moving forward with it, and I'm looking forward to it. I think my days of contending for that title are long since over, knowing that the level of competition that are behind is just so stacked, and you're going to need more than sort of like a B minus effort to win that belt. You're going to need to go full out to be able to win it.
Bobby.
I would have to say that the division it's just moving onward and upward. Um, the sense of stewardship that those that are competing for it right now and carrying on the legacy is there. It's established, and I'm excited to see what goes on. It's just what can they do? What will they do to expand on the legacy of the Hart Championship? And I look forward to seeing it.
R.L. Edgar.
Yeah, I like that, and I think it's just going to get bigger and better. The division. If you're someone like how I was when you first come in, you don't really know what you're doing. You kind of start to look up the championship um cards and try to figure out where you're fitting in. I think it's going to be the spot, for people to get in and really start throwing blows with people, having fun, and really starting to cement themselves as e-fetters and winning championships. And just to touch on a question that was asked about what I'd like to see with it, like something happen with the heart. I'd like, I know it kind of takes away from other people's opportunities, but I would like to see a Hart title run that leads to someone as the Hart champion challenging the Universal champion with kind of both belts up in the air. Make the division and that belt that important to where it's almost rivaling the Universal title in a way. And I think that with the people that are currently competing for that belt, um, it already kind of is, or it will be very shortly. I'm just excited to see what happens from here.
And finally, round to you, Mr. Maine.
So we all know where the cornerstones of the foundation lie, you know. But what I would like to see is new cornerstones. I want to see people out there on Twitter saying, "Hey, come get it," or wherever it may be. I want the gyms or the docks to hop in. I want to see, the Hart Championship versus the Universal Championship. The sky's the limit for the division, and the federation right now, it's flourishing. It's got talent from everywhere. And I really believe that one of our former Hart champions, whether it's Ned or Thad right now, or even the future, one of those guys are going to step up and they're going to become Universal Champion again. I want somebody to take my record down personally. That's what I want. I want to see a new guy come in and grow their character, and all of us be able to watch them build themselves towards a record-setting run and becoming a Universal Champion.
There's no doubt that the Hart title division is going to only heat up as we all progress. That being said, Sent, RL, Bobby, Rob, I want to thank you guys for coming on tonight and chatting about the division and where it's going and the history behind it. It was a pleasure to talk with all of you.
Likewise, sir. Thank you for having me.
And can we just admit, before we end this, that there was way too much Vinny Lane ass kissing on this podcast? And can we agree to never do it again?
I mean, you guys were the ones that were sucking on the tip of his dick, not me. I was just here to listen to it. It was definitely some firm brown nosing to the degree that I think some eyes turned brown.
Well, that's good every now and then.
That may be a good point. Speaking of Vinny Lane, there's only one other thing to do, unless you guys got anything else.
As a Hart champion, that was way better than Vinny Wayne. Vinny, take us out.
Not a problem. Today, tomorrow, every day hereafter, till the end of time. Go fuck yourself, Ghost Tank.
Thanks for listening to the XWF podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the XWF YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at XWF1999. And don't forget to check us out at XWF99.com. Be sure to join us next time where the action never slows down.